Welcome one and all to another edition of the Defo Show with Lubie here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network, brought to you by the phenomenal people at Water Cleanup of Florida. I've been talking about them a lot the last few months and never knew just how great they were. Look, I take a company's word at face value. Yeah, I'm born and raised in South Florida, but you know what? People are in business to stay in business. So usually when they talk about being available 24/7, when they talk about having over 60 years of combined experience, when they talk about having licensed contractors that will get the entire job done for you, I believe them. However, when you then use that company and they not only fulfill everything they said they would, but they're even better, it takes it to another level. And that's what Water Cleanup of Florida did for my wife and myself at our home. We had a water issue. We had mold. They found it. They were honest with us. They got rid of it. The complex didn't really fit into it, sort of got in our way. They made sure that it got done no matter what, effectively, efficiently. And the fact that communication-wise, whenever I reached out to them, they got back to me. The fact that when they came out, whoever it was, from Michael to Robert to their entire staff, and we dealt with a few different people, they all did an amazing job. And that's something you don't always get with service companies. You just don't. You do get that with Water Cleanup of Florida. They did it for my wife and myself. They'll do it for you. Give them a call, 954-579-0356, 954-579-0356. Check out their website, WCUFL.com, WCUFL.com. Again, Water Cleanup of Florida, no matter what happens with your home, water, fire, flood, mold issues, we don't like hearing any of those terms, but knowing Water Cleanup of Florida is there, it will make it a lot easier for you. If you mention 5 Reasons or Lubie when you give them a call, you get a free inspection during business hours. Check them out on the socials as well. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Water Cleanup FL. Water Cleanup of Florida. We clean up your schmutz. Schmutzy once again with the Miami Dolphins. We've been getting really excited about the Dolphins as tours look good in camp. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle looked electrifying. The running game, Chase Edmonds, most sort of looked solid. The offensive lines looked pretty good. The defenses looked really good. The team with Mike McDaniel out there, being honest, being fun, but also helping to open things up offensively and leave the defense stack alone, as it's one of the best defenses in football. We've gotten a real level of excitement. So, of course, something Stephen Ross, the owner, who's gotten in the way a lot in his tenure as owner, he hasn't really helped the team. He's hurt them a lot. Did it again for actions in the past. Well, the investigation into Brian Flores' accusations of paying the tank came back. And, of course, it was a good time. We talked about it, Defo and myself. We talked with longtime NFL insider, was with papers down here in South Florida, been on national outlets, author of Elway: A Relentless Life, screenwriter, working on some films, guy that knows the NFL inside and out. The one and only Jason Cole joined us today. Also, it was a kicking it old school with Tony Segreto Wednesday. So the guy who's covered the Dolphins, been close by the Dolphins for years. We got Tony Segreto's take as well on all that happened with the Miami Dolphins from the NFL yesterday, all the penalties, all the sadness, all the frustration. We talked about it today on the Defo Show with Lubie on the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
Well, and we had the blockbuster news, which we'll also get to, about the Miami Dolphins. And it seems kind of ridiculous to suspend Stephen Ross for 6 games into the season. He got the same suspension as was handed out to Deshaun Watson, 6 games. But who cares if the owner is suspended for 6 games? I mean, what consequence is it really to the organization? Since most people would say that aside from having a lot of money, and, I always defend Stephen Ross, saying, well, you know what, it seems like his heart is in the right place when it comes to trying to put a winner on the field. But he's just has always been seemingly victimized by really poor advisors that he surrounds himself with. And then, it begs the magic question that we asked that Fertitta guy from the Houston Rockets, where he took such offense. How is it that guys that are so brilliant in business become bozoic when they're involved in the world of sports? Is it because of the just suspect nature of everything that happens in sports, where you just don't know? You can't control all of the elements in sports. You don't know that your best hitter is going to get hurt at the beginning of the season, or in this case, maybe your quarterback is going to be subpar, even though you had anticipation he was going to be brilliant. Whatever it is that plagues the team on the field, it seems like Stephen Ross not only was victimized by poor advice in that category, and maybe now, just when it seemed like they were on a platform, maybe a little bit of a springboard to finally shake off that syndrome of being mired in mediocrity forever. And they seemed loaded up to take a shot at actually being a really good top-notch franchise in terms of performance. But the buffoon-like nature of some of his public relations moves is mind-boggling, is it not? For a guy that is so brilliant that he was able to be a self-made multi-billionaire based on his acumen in the real estate business. How can anybody be this? I don't know how else to put it. This fucking dumb. I mean, it's just amazing.
Dumb.
All of the stupidity that he's displayed over the years with bad PR moves, including, I guess, the one that really giving all that money to Michigan was one thing while he was asking for money for the stadium. The thing with Tim Tebow honoring the Gator football team in the Hurricanes' home stadium while the Dolphins were playing at home, and Tebow was a member of the opposition. Come on. I mean, if he got that idea from Nat Moore, I'm sorry, Nat. I don't even want that 9-iron that you've owed me for 50 years. Unbelievable. Since I was closest to the pin there in a golf tournament, one of those Dolphin golf tournaments, I had to never collect. I know I love Nat Moore. He's a great guy and a real true red-blooded American. Always seems to have his heart and soul involved with the Dolphin franchise. Always trying to do good in the community. Loves his Florida Gators. But, geez, I mean, that was just a bozo idea, which offended a lot of people and Dolphin fans. And then on top of that, I don't know. I mean, with these allegations that Flores made about tanking, do you think that Stephen Ross also was the man who called down on the red phone there in Jerry Jones-type fashion and told Tony Sperano, listen, this is embarrassing. Tebow's going to be out of football if he doesn't do something soon. Red Sea defense. Let's go Red Sea. Red Sea on 3. Right? And they all clap and break the huddle.
Yeah,
Red
exactly.
Sea on 3.
Exactly.
Because, I mean, it gave him that game. And I do believe that the Broncos were on the threshold of cutting Tebow.
Oh, yeah.
And
that
game was such a disaster all the way up until, like, the last 10 minutes or so, 8 minutes of the fourth quarter.
Prevent. And allowed
I
Tebow
think
to
he
just
would have
sit
been
there.
he would have been gone. Yeah, he would have been absolutely gone. But there have been a zillion things like that. So Flores makes these allegations. Naturally, Ross comes out with the statement from the team saying, "It's all
Which
a bunch
was a
of bullshit."
dumbass, which was a load of garbage.
And it looked to me like they were all true. I mean, they didn't,
100%.
finally, find conclusively that he had offered money to Brian Flores to tank games, but it sure sounded like he did.
Yeah, they found that the incident happened. They just were willing to go with Ross's bullshit excuse. Like, yeah,
I was
he
only
was
joking.
Okay, really? What? Then he's just as stupid. What owner's joking about? Like, come on, man. Like, are you kidding me? To a brand new coach who had been in the league for 15 years and was just happy to get his shot? Like, come on. What are you joking about? The whole thing is just interesting to me, and it's just funny. And first of all, the penalty was ridiculous. Like, every team tampers all the time. And they look, and I was talking about it with Professor, and I think this is exactly what happened. You're not taking away a first-round pick for tampering when every team tampers. So that's a joke. What happened was the Flores thing was 100% true. They know it's true, but he was suing the NFL. If they admit that it was true, then the whole league is screwed. So they can't have that. But they know it was true. So they have to hammer the Dolphins, and they have to hammer Ross for being a moron, because he is. And for some reason, I guess they can't force him to sell, and I don't know what it'll take for them to force him to sell. So they hammer the Dolphins in a way no one's ever been hammered for tampering. Like, he brought up a good example. The Dolphins got rid of Kyle Van Noy the same day the Patriots signed him. How the hell would the Patriots know he's ready to be signed the same day? Like, come on. Like, it's tampering. That happens all the time. But the Dolphins, first of all, Ross is an idiot, so I'm sure he was as bad as anyone has ever been. Like Tim Floyd himself carrying the cash to OJ Mayo. Like, hello, Floyd. So I'm sure Ross was ridiculously stupid about it. But still, you don't get a first rounder that year taken away for tampering. The whole thing was a joke. And my favorite is people mad at Flores. Like, what was Flores supposed to do? Like, it happened. It happened. Like, why wouldn't he say it?
Just gets the job. There's all this, contretemps about minority coaches and how few there are in the NFL. He finally lands a job as a head coach in the league. And imagine you walk into the office the first day and the owner of the team is telling you, hey, Brian, this is great, but we want you to go 0-16 this year, which will probably mean that you'll never get another head coaching job ever again. We want you to ruin your reputation and absolutely start out in the most horrendous fashion possible. And you know what? We'll give you a few extra bucks if you do that. I mean, you couldn't look like any more of an ass.
Yep.
Than to say that to your head coach. And if you're the head coach and you just go, oh, yeah, that sounds good, then why not just sign up for the Live Football Tour?
Exactly.
When it comes around.
What coaches really, and that's the thing, look, I get it that they should have tanked. I wanted them to tank. I was all in. They didn't tank good enough. But you can't tell the coach to tank. Then, and you can't pay him to tank. You just can't do it.
Tanking is the residue of the giant flaw in the system, which the NFL refuses to fix. And we should run this by Jason Cole again when it comes on to discuss this whole Dolphin thing. That rewarding futility is the worst position that you could possibly take in sports. There has to be a better way to do this and make it so it's so punitive to deliberately lose games that you may never be good again. That even if you have the lousiest team, and on paper, I mean, should go 0-17 every year for the next 5 years, then it behooves the league to do something to force those organizations to try and do better, to at least win 3 games, 4 games. Don't make it prohibitive to only win a handful of games. If you're only capable of winning 3-4 games, you should go out there with every intent of doing that. Not ending up with 0 like was the case with the Indianapolis Colts and the suck for luck campaign. And then subsequently we've seen it, and we've seen it in other sports as well. The idea of rewarding futility is the most backwards philosophical thinking that you could possibly institute into a game. And you need to find a way to get around that and make it so that it's horrendous if you end up with the worst record. That inhibits your chances of being good again so prohibitively that you would never conceive of deliberately going out there and trying to lose every game. And there's a way around that, and that's stop giving the worst team in the league the number 1 overall pick. Especially, I mean, it really comes up in years where you have a guy that you think is a can't-miss proposition, which I don't know if there is such a thing anymore after watching the last several years of drafting where, there's so many guys that came into the league as a supposed cinch, and they really haven't done that much to distinguish themselves yet. But no, that was horrendous. And it was even worse than that. I mean, when they were just cutting guys and trading guys towards the end of the season, they started to win a couple of games, and they just kept getting rid of everybody and bringing in players that weren't even qualified to be in the National Football League, and they were signed up and they were starters. You can't have a more hideous example of tanking. The fact that Brian Flores won 5 games in that first season that he was the head coach of the team, 5 of his last 9, it is such an amazing accomplishment that even though he couldn't figure out what the hell he was thinking on offense, you had to say, my God, this guy must have some ability to be a head coach in this league. He has to. If he was able to rally that team under those circumstances to win 5 of their last 9 games in that season, that was pretty incredible, including derailing the Patriots that year from possibly going to the Super Bowl again. So it was no small accomplishment and shouldn't be overlooked. But it appeared clear that the directive from the organization was we're going to do everything in our power to lose games. And even when we start winning games, we're going to continue to try to decimate this team to the point where they're absolute garbage so we can have a number 1 pick and tank for Tua. Very nice. And then we're going to do that for a couple of years. I mean, you're telling your fans, hey, listen, we were so bad at what we were doing that we're going to just be even worse for the next couple of years. We would like your money, though, to be paid in advance for season tickets. And we're still going to kick your ass for parking and concessions and things like that. It's going to be a very expensive proposition to watch us lose. And I've always defended Ross. It seemed to me like he was in a position where he was trying to do something. Now, I don't know what he was thinking because Brady, they were trying to offer him like a piece of the franchise, which seemed like something that might be desirable to Tom Brady.
I mean, come on.
But to do it without asking, I mean, how do you not know that you need to at least talk to somebody about the possibility of talking to Tom Brady? And you don't think the Patriots might have said, well, you want to talk to him about that? Go ahead. Well, what do we care?
That's the funny thing is they may have been okay with it at that point.
Yeah. They wanted Jimmy Garoppolo anyway to be their quarterback. They thought Brady was shot like we did. And, like a lot of people, we were wrong about that. But, I think the Patriots might have been on that page. They might have been more than willing to have him go off into the sunset under these circumstances and would have been far more favorable than just having him leave, right, and go to Tampa Bay, which is what ended up happening, and then win a Super Bowl in their face. But it seems odd. I don't know. People always say this. It's kind of funny to, think, but it happens to be true. that fining Stephen Ross and the Dolphins organization $2 million is like fining Lubie $8.
Yeah, I mean,
actually, it would be probably
I'd
harsher
rather
on
have
you
the
if they
eight.
fined you $8. Yeah, you couldn't make it 5. So that seems inconsequential, and who gives a shit if Ross is at these games? He looks like he's lost anyway when he's
Well,
there.
supposedly he can be at the games. He's suspended till October, but supposedly I've seen mixed information where the Beal guy can't, which I still don't understand. The guy that's supposedly buying the team was involved. Like,
Yeah.
how the hell does the NFL still allow this guy to buy the team? Whatever.
Yeah, why not?
I don't understand. But anyway, but Mark Cuban could get a team. I still
Yeah.
Mark Cuban couldn't get a team, but this guy can, who's involved in already in
the
propriety.
whole thing with Snyder and Bob Kraft that we were talking about yesterday. I mean,
The Kraft thing. The Kraft was egregious as all hell. He got no penalty, and the Dolphins. And that's the thing is, I'm not even trying to defend Ross. I think he's a moron, and they should have forced him to sell a long time ago. But the penalty is ridiculous, especially when Kraft got nothing.
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 Sex trafficking
For doing the
scandal.
same thing, Watson.
I mean, he's walking into a place that the cops are staking out, for God's sake. For sex trafficking. I mean, for something so hideous, so heinous that nobody would want to be near this joint. And, like we said, I mean, there are probably places that you could go and have this done, which, are
It's legal.
Maybe a little higher level of dignity than some Asian massage parlor in a strip mall in Jupiter, Florida. Crazy stuff. Anyway, that's one thing, and we'll get into that with Jason Cole, and he'll have great perspective on it, no doubt. I don't know, I mean, losing a number 1 pick, this was what the Dolphins were all about, weren't they? And that was assembling a massive amount of draft capital so they could turn their franchise around. Now, they appear to have made roster adjustments, at least for my money, that would make them very representative, and I think they're being somewhat overlooked this year, even by our own John Kajemi, who feels like the schedule is so onerous that they're going to be lucky to win 8 games this year, which would be less than they won last year when they had nothing of the sort in terms of seemingly this level of talent on their team. Waddle was an emerging talent, and we didn't know he was going to be that good. Tyreek Hill, one of the most dangerous weapons, if not the most dangerous weapons in the National Football League, is now part of your offense. The Tua man is bolstered by new confidence and, seems to be the kind of quarterback that could take advantage of what Waddle and Tyreek Hill can do, especially. And, it helps a lot to throw the long ball to a guy that's faster than everybody else. It really does. And then to support it with a running game and having an offensive line. They made all these brilliant moves, and then right there, in the end game before the season starts, as everybody's fueled with optimism, they get once again lambasted and penalized for being bozos. Only
Stephen Ross.
Only in South Florida. The Defo Show, Jeff DeForest, Mike Lubie. It's always a pleasure to welcome this gentleman to the program. He is the ultimate when it comes to NFL insiders. Been doing it a long time. Of course, started out here with the newspapers in South Florida and then blossomed into an international figure in this regard. Screenwriter now with screen credits. And I don't know, pretty soon he'll be starring in action films. Jason Cole joins us here on the program. Jason, how are you, my friend?
I'm fantastic. What's going on?
Nothing here. Pretty quiet.
Every time.
I don't even know what to say. I mean, I want to leave it right in your lap here, Jason Cole. What did you make of what transpired yesterday with Stephen Ross and the Dolphins and the NFL?
Well, I think Stephen Ross got away with possibly the most damaging thing that you can do to your team, right? I think he got away pretty easy, all things considered. The tampering stuff doesn't even bother me that much. I mean, I laugh about the tampering stuff because here is that, Beal talks about his really tight relationship with Brady, right? He likes to flaunt that one to people all the time. Oh, I'm really tight with Brady. I'm really tight with Brady. You're really, really tight with Brady. For 3 years, Brady basically refused to play for you. This is how tight you are with Brady.
Yeah.
That you can go all the way back to 2019 when you were, interfering with him, and he said, "I'll pass. I'll go to Tampa." Or instead. And he didn't really make the whole thing this offseason that serious. I know some people say, oh, it was about ready to happen. It really wasn't ready to happen. Brady was flexing his muscles at Tampa to get rid of Bruce Arians all along. He wasn't flexing his muscles to go to Miami. I think that the Dolphins were pretending that they were going to have that happen. But the worst thing is, and the NFL did everything they could in this release to like poo-poo this thing and make it not sound like it's a real thing. He instructed them to not win games, and you can joke about it, laugh about it. But when the owner repeatedly says we should be worried about draft position, you're worried. He's telling you to lose games, one way or the other. And that is, that's the most essential violation of what you're selling to the public and what you're supposed to do. And I mean, this hits on multiple levels. We thought you guys certainly will talk about the gambling element of this.
Sure.
Yeah.
I know that'll happen.
Of course.
but it's the basic bond that you sell to your to your fan base is like you're trying to win. You're trying to entertain people every weekend. You're trying to give them a pure product. And we all know that, sometimes you would rather lose games, and you talk about it that way. The fan base talks about it in public, but it can't happen in private. It just can't. It can't. I mean, you can. I know it's happened, but it's not supposed to. And when people find out that it does, you basically turn your product into pro wrestling.
Yep.
And that's just it's unacceptable. And he should be gone.
Wow. Him
and Beal. It just shouldn't. It just should be. You're going to sell the team, and let's mostly on line. Instead, the NFL writes this ham-fisted part about, he said it several times, but it was just in jest. We promise you, it was just in jest. Because we can't have it come out that this was ever a serious thing.
Well, and that's the thing is, everywhere I've read, it feels like the NFL sort of admitted the incident happened, but they have to buy that bogus excuse. So is that what the penalty was for? Like indirectly, we can't admit that you did this because we won't have a league anymore, but we're going to give you a pretty serious, and you're right, if what happened really happened, then it's not serious at all, but we're going to give you a somewhat substantial penalty for it, right? Like the tampering, everyone does it. So no one gets a penalty like that for tampering.
Right.
So you're giving that penalty for the tanking.
Yeah. Right. This is, look, they've gotten away with this, and they've gotten around the really awkward reality that they tampered. It's almost convenient.
Yep.
That they tampered because the tampering then, because it's Brady and because it's Sean Payton, the aspect of tampering becomes a bigger story than the bigger problem, which is tanking. And because that's become the headline. Everything is, they tampered with Brady. They tampered with Brady. They tamper with Payton. They tamper with Payton. Everybody tampers with everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. It just happens, right? It's the truth is that the exception is the teams that don't tamper, like Pittsburgh doesn't tamper generally. And Green Bay doesn't tamper, but everybody talks about wanting to, what if we do this and what if we do that, and let's call a guy and see if a guy. Now they're not as ham-fisted about it as these two idiots were, and they generally make it work. But tanking games, like telling your coach you want to lose, wow, just wow, that's the one that. They got around that one in a big way.
Yeah, I'm waiting for Pete Rose to be named commissioner of the
Exactly.
National Football League to handle these gambling issues. And I remember this from one of the first interviews I ever did, Jason. I was with the then GM of they were the California Angels at the time, Harry Dalton. And I remember him telling me, and this has stuck with me, that one of the things that they do is that they're selling a pennant race, and the very last thing that you could possibly want is to have people suspicious that the game is not on the level. And obviously, that's been a tenet of professional sports and sports in general forever. And as you said, you can't have this morph into professional wrestling. But I know we've had this discussion before. I mean, do you think to some extent that this business of rewarding futility and always giving the number one pick to the worst team in the league actually fuels the incentive to do something horrific, which is in open defiance of everything that you would want your team goals to be, and that is to win at least as many games as you're capable of winning, and not just throw games away so that you can have the number one pick. I mean, that being dangled out there, does the league not need to do something to address that shouldn't be the incentive? It shouldn't be there.
Well, absolutely. Like there should be some kind of lottery in the NFL for the number one pick. Now, I will say this. I think sometimes people overvalue the number one pick.
Yeah.
Or the high picks, particularly in football. Like wherever it falls in love, well, we'll get the number one pick. We're going to get this guy, this guy, this guy. And oftentimes you find out 4 years later that it was really the 10th pick or the 15th pick or the 28th pick that was the best pick. Because what happens in football is not only is the bust rate pretty high, but the injury rate is so high that the value of having the number one pick versus the number 15 pick is not as great as it is, say, in basketball or even in baseball, right? Where the bust rate is pretty high in baseball too. Basketball, it's pretty clear that you take, the number 1, 2, or 3 guy, you're getting a star player in most cases, right? Or an impact player. The busts are on a more historic level, in basketball. But, I've always said, look, you can look at teams that are bad for a series of years and didn't guarantee that they were going to be good. Like Detroit was bad for horrendously bad for a 4-year stretch. I mean, they've been bad for 80 years, but but they had that stretch where they went 0-16 one year, and during that stretch they got was it Matt Stafford and Ndamukong Suh and Calvin Johnson.
Yeah, they drafted well.
Yeah,
those are three. It's a Hall of Famer, a Super Bowl winning coach, and one of the best defensive tackles of the last 15 years, right? They went to the playoffs once.
Yeah.
During the time that they had those 3 guys together. It was not a guarantee of anything. They never won a playoff game. So just because you do the ineptitude thing, or you're Cleveland and you get all these high picks over a stretch of 6, 7, 8 years, right?
Yep.
And it turns out that none of them make your team. So I think the idea of tanking is a really dangerous one in football, because it creates a mentality that's hard to get out of, more so than in other sports. So it's a really bad level on multiple ideas, but the other one is it kind of doesn't work. It really doesn't. You're better off having a well-run organization. So tanking is a doubly stupid idea.
Classic stuff. Jason Call, always a pleasure, my friend. Every Wednesday, we get the opportunity and have the pleasure to go old school with a guy that exhibits a lot of the characteristics that we talked about and great admiration that were attached to Vince Scully, and were very sincerely a part of his persona, the class, the dignity. I mean, just that ability to make everybody feel like he was always your best friend. The great Tony Segreto joins us here on the program.
What a day yesterday. I mean, it was a yin and a yang day. I mean, you're looking at the day and you're going, oh my goodness.
Slow news day.
Yeah. I mean, you're trying to figure out where the NFL is going to go in response to the Deshaun Watson suspension. I think I know where they're going to go. I think I understand. I think I know what they're going to do. Okay, so they've got today's the end of their 48 hours, so they've got to come up with a decision. Then the Stephen Ross Dolphin thing breaks, and you look at that, you examine that, and you go, it's interesting because the day he's allowed back into the league is the same day that Deshaun Watson is due back in the league. So they're consistent with owners and players in terms of their suspension, 6 games.
Well, one was administered, though, by the NFL itself in a case of
so the
Stephen
NFL.
Ross. The other one came
right.
from an independent arbitrator.
Right. So first, let's take the first things first. How will the NFL react? Now, the NFL has the opportunity to do it a full season. My guess is that the NFL will, this is my guess, that the NFL will come out and say, we set this process in motion. We brought on this investigator 2 years ago. We said we would follow the rules. It's best we just stay where we are. He's out for 6 weeks. He resumes his play October, whatever is 22nd. That's my guess of what they'll do. Because I think all of the other ways are going to be way too dirty for them. And I think it's going to cause a problem.
And it's the old thing in news, and you know this as well as anybody, and especially if your name is in the headlines in some form of infamy or in some derogatory light, you can't wait for somebody else to do something.
Yep.
Well, so, that was the thing.
Deshaun Watson he might send a check for the $2 million to Stephen Ross for saying, "Hey, thanks, Steve, for the tampering, the bozo nature."
You could not have exactly. You could not have picked any. I mean, the timing of this, of the Ross thing, you shake your head. You go, "Wait a minute here."
The next day.
I mean, it's just a.
I mean, no one cares about Watson anymore.
Yeah,
he was coming back anyway, so who cares? 6 games a year, what's the difference to anybody?
He and his agent and the team are like, get off our back. Thank you, God. There's somebody else I can worry about.
What do you make of this? Now, do you know Stephen Ross?
I know
casually,
him.
Or
I know him. I do know him, and I am.
Who's advising this guy? I mean, who really has his ear?
Stephen Ross. Stephen Ross.
Danny Boy's not suggesting, "Hey, why don't we get Brady?" He would probably want to sign himself before he, had the Dolphins get Brady.
You got that right. You definitely got that right. But I thought Jason's perspective was pretty interesting. That the tampering was more of a
smokescreen
cover up.
More of a cover up or smokescreen. I think Lubie is the better way to put it. Smokescreen for the alleged gambling issue. Here's the thing. I thought this very curious. This is just me. That when they answered that question about what about the tanking games, they go, well, they didn't tank. They played hard. Of course they played hard because Flores didn't buy in. And secondly, I don't care what you tell me. It's harder for a player who has that competitive spirit to tank a game than it is to not want to win a game. It is. It's just in their nature.
It seemed like their offense was, though, that regardless, the players were playing hard, but as they did that towards the end of that first season of Brian Flores' tenure as coach, they continued to just ship guys out that had any possibility of making a meaningful contribution and bringing in worse guys, and they were still winning. So the front office was really orchestrating that. I mean,
absolutely.
in a big way.
And for them to say what was said, the recollections of what was said, and the spirit of what was said is ambiguous. Well, that's BS. Are you kidding me right now? Be ambiguous? Oh, it's easy to say I was just joking. Whether joking or not, it fit. Listen, all I can tell you this: I wasn't in the room, but I've been around a long time. That was if this isn't true at all. What a wild ass story that Flores came up with that he made up. Okay, that's about as outlandish as you can call.
He doesn't seem like a dishonest guy.
Talk about a screenwriter. He needs to move to Hollywood if he can pull this out of his career.
How do you even come up with that?
Well, and it was important, though, and it's interesting because all of this language that was used. And now, Stephen Ross went with the woman, what woman theory. Like, hey, you see, I'm exonerated. Like he was Ted Cruz, talking to a crowd about January 6th. And then you have, this thing with Flores where it looks like his allegations bore at least some credibility, and the league has this lawsuit still with him, so they can't admit that they found themselves that he was right, or they really blow any chance they have of coming out in a favorable light in this lawsuit. But then their partners are all gambling guys.
Yes.
Here's the deal. Regardless of what outcome comes out, they could have found him guilty on every charge. And basically said you're done for a year, whatever the case might be.
Sell that would be the thing.
Well, you would think at the end of the day, if this team goes out and starts winning,
we'll forget about all
fans won't care.
Sure.
Fans don't care.
What do you mean they were signing? They wanted Watson came out to a bevy of Browns fans. He's never played for the Browns yet. All he's done has been swirled in rumors with the Browns, and there was hundreds of fans that wanted his autograph.
Yeah,
and he was just found guilty.
It's just about win. Listen, goes back to the old Al Davis: win, baby, win. And I just cannot believe that there wasn't more to this than we're finding out, and the tampering. And I agree with you, tampering. Everybody does. It's rampant. They're the ones who got caught. It's absolutely rampant. And I don't understand. I don't understand. All I know is that we wind up a day with an owner who's not going to file an appeal, who disagrees with all of this.
Oh, he has to be feeling like he's skated.
Hey, folks, Tony Segreto here. Since day one, Catholic Health Services has been part of Old School. And since we've started letting people know about them, it's changed their lives. You see, Catholic Health Services, while being recognized as one of the top places for stroke rehab in the country, it's also about a group of people who not just excel in what they do, from the doctors to the nurses to the therapist, on and on and on. It's how they do what they do every single day that separates them from the pack. They do it with a passion, unmatched, and the inclusion of family in every step of the process. Trust me when I tell you this. If you want the best, unmatched rehab with a special group of skilled, caring people, there is truly only one place, and that one place is Catholic Health Services.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in Plantation, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.